think we have 4.
At least.
At least.
Yep. There's at least 6, 7.
Yeah. So we have 4 is 5. So can we call this meeting to order?
Chair, you can do whatever you want. This is
Right. Then we're calling this meeting to order at 1:04. Everyone should have received the draft agenda. Is there any changes or anything to it since then, Keith, or
not to my knowledge.
okay. Anything else that we need to change to the agenda? Are we good? And if we are good, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
We've got a motion. We have a second. Motion is second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried. You should have also received your minutes from the August 10th meeting. Wow, has it been that long? Hope everyone had a chance to review them.
I just had one correction. At where it says call meeting to order, it should say chair-elect and not chair for me. It says that later, but there at the top, I was like, I wasn't the chair.
Gotcha. Any other corrections or additions to the minutes?
And Keith, are you able to turn the volume up on the room microphone?
Let me, you ask some dark wizardry here.
In Garrett Public Library is misspelled there. That should have 2 T's in it.
Good catch. Thank you.
I will try and work on the sound here. Let me first correct the minutes. Where is?
Does it help if I just yell, Ruth?
Yeah, a little bit, but you might feel weird after a while. And I can hear as long as it's only one person talking, but
Have you already fixed the minutes for that, Ruth?
I haven't fixed the minutes, but I can once I get into that account. Hold on.
Where
I'll
was
do
the
that.
correction?
Very first one is the call meeting to order was Julia Aker, chair-elect.
Let me get in there real quick. I also need to get something for someone else. So hold on.
And under the roll call, adding another T here.
Minutes. I think I've put myself into a place I don't belong.
Haven't we all? Sorry about that.
Right.
All right, if there are no other additions or corrections to the minute, I'll entertain a motion to approve the August 10th minutes as amended.
So moved, Julia Aker.
Julia, a second. Second. We have a motion, move to approve the agenda from the minutes from August 10th and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. All right. Up to you, Keith, State Library report.
All right. First, is that volume any better, Ruth?
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Whew. And I will close the 10 million tabs that have come down here. And I will now try and get my head around the State Library report. Oh, it's probably not sharing this tab here. I think it's this tab. All right, is that showing the State Library report?
It is.
Okay, lovely. Whew. On slide. Okay, so our special project participation, Currently, we have moved up from 77 transiting media libraries to 83 libraries. This is based on a report that shows libraries that currently have transiting media parts. We are up to 49 fine-free libraries and 81 auto-renewal libraries. That 49th fine-free library includes Newburgh Chandler, who is scheduled to go live with the fines-free program on the first of the year. So if anybody wants to be the 50th fine-free library, there is now the door is open for you to wear that prestigious honor. I want to talk a little bit about the upgrade news. Probably everyone in this room has been hopefully very gently hammered over the head with information kind of foreshadowing what was coming in the upgrade, and you've all probably been on the forefronts of seeing what the upgrade contained. The upgrade happened on the 25th and 26th to Evergreen 3.7.1. As far as Evergreen upgrades goes, it was certainly the smoothest I've ever been a part in as the Evergreen Indiana coordinator, and certainly one of the smoothest I've ever seen. So fantastic job to Lynn for sacrificing her Thanksgiving holiday to get that up, but also the servers were down for just a little under 11 hours before they came back up. As a result of the upgrade, we did find, I had at least logged 12 notable issues, almost all of which have been resolved. Along with this, there have been numerous smaller patches and bug fixes that have been applied. Currently, Lynn has been making weekly pushes to the Evergreen client to resolve things like the splash screen redirecting and the call numbers not displaying in catalog. A lot of those things require a major, what word do you want to use? Like, it's not a rebuild, a redesign to be able to push those out. So we've been pushing those out in waves.
Technically, it is a rebuild.
It is a rebuild. Okay, so that is the correct word. Fantastic. So as part of this upgrade, there were a lot of things in there, and Ruth has done a fantastic job of doing a slew of training, at least 4 different sessions just on new features alone, not including special presentations on the cover art uploader and carousels. Several noteworthy features that have been added are that cover art uploader, the holds groups that we anticipate being useful for book clubs and for kind of the first steps towards author subscription services, where you can create a static group of patrons that will be automatically put on hold for that you can place on as a group. You can place a title on hold for the entire collection of patrons and that patron bucket. The angularized staff catalog is now the default. The angularized staff catalog was introduced in, was it 3.4 when it first went live as an experimental version? You're muted, Ruth, sorry. But the Angular staff catalog has been around. It is just now the default.
You're correct. It was 3.4.
Yeah, excellent, thank you. So the traditional catalog is still there, of course, but now if you hit F3, you're taken to the Angularized staff catalog by default. We have completed the development work to get carousels up and running, and I know Ruth has a training. She had a training yesterday on that. I believe we'll have another training Friday.
That's correct. At 10 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time.
Excellent. And so I'll let her talk about that once we come to her slide there. Overall, just a huge thanks from me to not just Lynn, Bob, and Ruth for all the help wrangling the bugs and answering help desk tickets and countless emails, but also to all of our member libraries who have submitted that feedback in whatever form. Anything that you get to us helps point out issues and resolve them. So huge thanks there. We've decided, however, as well as the upgrade went, that we probably don't want to do another Thanksgiving upgrade for our next release. So we'll be targeting Labor Day weekend, so around September 4th or 5th for our next upgrade to an as yet unknown version of Evergreen 3.8. From the administrative side of things here, as of last night, I believe I actually created this slide before I finished this. I believe that I have all of the Evergreen, Indiana membership invoices for 2022 set up to be generated. And so those can be emailed out once I kick some more tires. Those can be emailed out certainly by the end of the week, with the physical mailings to follow shortly after. One thing that we have finally gotten is that membership fees will finally be payable by ACH after a long drawn out battle to get that set up. The caveat there is having never actually seen what an ACH deposit looks like when it hits my bank account, I am a little hesitant to open the floodgates to that and then get potentially 50, 80, 120 payments that will become very difficult to match up with libraries. So I will be soliciting any pilot libraries, perhaps among the executive committee, that want to make an ACH payment, so I can see what that will look like, both when you make the payment and when it hits my bank account, to see what sort of nightmare it will be to try and pair that up with the invoice register that I've got. But I'm super excited that not just membership fees, but anything that is a pass-through, like Gale courses, will be payable with by ACH. I know this is something that libraries have been asking for a long time. We are still working with the Indiana State Library Business Office to be able to allow libraries to make their quarterly reconciliation payments via ACH. There's just some ongoing discussions about what that workflow looks like and who's going to take on what responsibility. And the business office of the state library has had a couple shakeups in staffing. So it's an ongoing conversation to get that squared away. I'm also currently working with LDO on annual statistics. I know that kind of one of the boogeymen that has come up this year to the shock and detriment of all is the State Board of Accounts has, I'm not sure if the word is requested or required, that libraries begin reporting on their collection and equipment values along with depreciation. Those are all words that I conceptually understand, but do not yet know exactly by what metrics the State Board of Account is having libraries determine those things. But it's very much on my radar to see what we can do as far as reporting to help get libraries at least part of that information about your Evergreen collections. And that is what I have in my report. Ruth, are you cool to run? I guess first I'll ask if there's any questions or concerns, and pause for a moment while I take a drink here.
While you're pausing, taking a break, and the potential for questions, if you can just run the slides, and then otherwise we'll have the same thing, but have to share. So if you could just go to the next slide, I can get started.
Cool. All right.
So since we last met, we did have a round of Evergreen fundamental skills in October, our third quarter training. They were kind of reconfigured a little bit because we knew that we were going to be upgrading and some of the interfaces were going to change, and in preparation for the new features, webinars, some of them were abbreviated. I also got sick, and so we had to reschedule some of them. So they went between October and November. We had about 100 people participate in the Evergreen Fundamental Skills courses, which is down, but also normal for that time of year. In terms of the Evergreen Indiana annual conference sessions, we did, of course, cancel the conference because of COVID-19, and then had those sessions moved to virtual. We've had, I believe, 4 since then. Most of them have been cataloging courses, and we had a lot of excitement about Anita Brown's session on conjoined items. Sarah Childs talked about serials. Jocelyn Lewis talked about map collections and adding those into the catalog. And they were all well attended, and we had a lot of good feedback for that. And then we got to the cover art, or to the new features and the cataloging features, and we had 600 people participate in those 4 sessions, and that was fantastic. It was a lot of paperwork after the fact to track those. The new cataloging features for version 3.7 also constituted the annual Cat 1 refresher. And so that was the opportunity for your certified catalogers to get their annual continuing ed in Evergreen, Indiana requirement up to date. And we had a lot of participation in that. I believe we had 180 people go through just the new cataloging features. And then we had the cover art uploader training. So far, that we have had 30 Cat 1s who have gone through the training and requested that ad hoc permission be added to their account, or had a supervisor request that for them. Eventually, that permission is going to go into the Cat 1 permission group, but because it hasn't yet been added to the standard training, it's something that requires training, because there are some pretty far-reaching considerations in terms of somebody that has the power to add images to both the staff and the public catalog. And then yesterday, I think, if I'm remembering time in the right way, we had the first carousels training at kind of the same time that we're working out the last little bugs with carousels, which we think that we have them all ironed out as much as possible. We're going to have an extended session on Friday for those people who were there yesterday, but then whoever else, because it will be a complete training, but it will be a little bit more in depth than the one yesterday, to show both the stock carousels that can be used, and then how to create carousels that are for your library. Just a reminder that carousels are an OPAC enhancement, and I am in the process, not this exact second, but I have been the past couple days working on getting a website for each of your libraries that has one of those carousels on it that shows your most recently cataloged items. If you have a multi-branch system, I'm kind of working with that so that there's one for each of your branches that also includes things that are newly cataloged for your entire system. Those, of course, are your websites, just like your catalog. When it includes when it's configured correctly, it will search your collection first. These are the same way, but they'll include the carousel. So one thing to just keep in mind, and I think that we talk a little bit about this down the road, maybe not, is that you will need to update your URL for your public catalog, or your OPAC, however you refer to it, if you have it on your website where it goes directly to your custom catalog there. Okay. We have 129 pieces of files for cover art have been uploaded by library staff. That's pretty exciting. So then the next thing on there, and all that to say that we've sent out well over 1,000 LEUs in like closer to 1,500 LEUs in the past couple months, which has been a lot, but also really awesome. Porter County migration training schedule, we are working on getting that ironed out. There will be an opportunity with the final phase of that, 2 phases. So we're going to do some on-site training with them for things like local administration and cataloging and acquisitions. There will be, as part of that, connecting them with some mentors within the system in case they need to follow up on things that are maybe not as, I don't want to say not as high level, but are much more day-to-day running of a library than they would necessarily need for us, so that they can get some advice or support on that as they are preparing to switch ILS. Then also, as we get close to that go live day, there's going to be the training, the final training on site the day before go live. And we will have a call out for volunteers who maybe want to go to Porter County and either be part of the training on that Monday or be there as support people on Tuesday, which will be the go live day. So, but we're going to get some more information from Porter County on what their expectations are as well, and what their kind of ideal scenario would be before we start coordinating, adding more people into the mix. I just put on here as a reminder about the MCLS cataloging training scholarships. We'll be working on actually promoting that better, since it has been approved by the EC. So that has not fallen off any of my radar. It's just gotten moved down the priority list a little bit right now. The go live date, I think that Keith is going to cover that.
It is
March the 22nd, I think.
Slide for it. If we haven't mentioned it, it's March 22nd.
Mm-hmm.
Will be go live. That should be a Tuesday.
It is a Tuesday, yeah.
Monday the 21st would be the on-site all hands on deck.
Yeah, their final training bit where we iron out all their holds, procedures, and things like that.
Good question. Thank you, Julia.
And then just a reminder also that the Evergreen Indiana YouTube channel, Evergreen Indiana YouTube channel and Training YouTube channel both exist. And we had a ton of people watch the new features webinar and the new cataloging features webinar. I haven't checked the numbers recently, but I anticipate if I do that, the one will be about 400 views, the new features, and the new cataloging will be close to 300. That was kind of the track it was headed on. So fantastic. And that's in addition to those people who were there for the live training. Okay, you want to go to the next? Do I have another one there? Yes, the local administration certification. So I've already talked about this. The EC has already approved to have a kind of Cat 1 light certification for local admins. And we've already talked about launching it. Just some reminders here that of what that meant. Not sure what's going on here with the screen, but
it occurs to me that the folks at home can see what's going on. I hope this would have been a seamless thing.
Oh, that's true. As I say, are you not projecting that there?
To see, and I can see it on my monitor, but that is less important than the people who, haven't been staring at this for the past 10 hours.
Are you okay? Do I need to wait? Are you not projecting that on a screen there?
Zoom is doing a thing.
Oh, okay. Well, all that to say, I've done the preliminary steps in terms of this certification process, which includes the audit and the next to see what ones exist, which ones are active. And you can tell that by the activity date generally, but also where there were some who were either expired or due to expire, extended that through the end of 2022 to give everybody the opportunity to get a refresher in there. Those who have attended training since 2019 may have an extended expiration date on there. Although that is 3 years, so that would be when it would actually expire. So there will be some information about that coming out pretty soon. The annual refresher, Keith and I have talked about that, is going to be kind of a check-in meeting every year. That is, these are the main things that you are responsible for doing as a local admin. This is how you do it. This is why it's important, as well as new features that may have been glossed over a little bit, or other things like that. So we anticipate that course, that refresher course, will be about an hour, and will be live, and then will also be recorded. So I'll have the preliminary survey to go out by the first of the year, just so that we can really keep this on schedule. And what that will include is each individual library going through the local administration accounts that they have, seeing what is being used again and who is using it, because at the end of 2022, there will no longer be any shared local admin accounts. Each person who has that permission will have their own individual login. Okay, and I think that's enough to say about that. If there are any questions. Okay, that's all I got.
All right. But wait, there's more. So we've had a couple medium to high profile project statuses here that we want to update you on. The change hold type development is still in process. That's being done by Emerald Data Networks. We are currently trying to get in touch with them to figure out when we can expect that code delivery by. The last update we got was that the code was 90% complete. So we look forward to being able to have that hopefully in our next version of Evergreen, or our next Evergreen upgrade. The cover art uploader we've kind of talked about at great length, but we are super excited that that was something that the committee voted to fund back in June, and less than 6 months later, it was developed, implemented, and put into Evergreen for everybody to use right now. So we're pretty stoked on that. It's pretty cool.
And it's also worth noting in this meeting that a lot of thanks go out to our cataloging community in Evergreen, Indiana. We had about 18 catalogers who helped us test that feature and make sure it was what we were anticipating it to work like. And we had a lot of fun doing it, but it was work. And a huge thank you to those of you who may have those catalogers on staff as well for empowering them to help us test that feature.
Just as a side note, I did sign off on the code for the cover uploader today. So it should be in the next major feature release of Evergreen.
That is a good distinction too. So this was developed specifically for Evergreen, Indiana, which means that it was not part of, if you were to go and download Evergreen now and create your own instance, this would not be part of it. But with Lynn signing off on it for the main software, we're hopeful that it will be included then in the next major release, which for the whole of the Evergreen community, not just Evergreen, Indiana.
Cool. Are you ready for the ECDI update here?
Yeah.
All right. More
I
updates.
guess so. Yeah, you can just go ahead and click through all of them. I don't need any of that animation going on there.
Not that much. Nope, 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 nope. There you go.
So that is a live link there for the project bundles. And Keith, do you send out these slides to committee members afterward?
That is a great question. There is no reason that I can't send out those slides, so
Okay.
I will make a note to myself to send out these slides.
Okay, cool. So if you want to take a look at that, you can click on those. There's nothing really new there. That's kind of our tracking document to see what we've addressed already and what we need to prioritize next. So some of the projects that are going on right now in various states, we are expecting to, well, I say preliminary testing has already begun for the next piece of acquisitions. I know this is kind of a niche area, but very meaningful to those who use acquisitions. And then also, hopefully, this is going to make it a much more accessible feature for other libraries who want to use acquisitions, updating those interfaces and making them behave in a more expected manner in terms of modern applications. So we anticipate getting to test that sprint for the purchase orders in line items in the next couple days. And we have some Evergreen, Indiana people who will be participating in that testing, and then from other Evergreen library organization users. So Did You Mean is an OPAC enhancement, and it's something that we talked about in the new features workshop. It provides suggestions, and there are some issues with it because we are such a large system. And so we are waiting to move to the next stage of this, which is to develop multi-word. Right now, it's just single word. Until we get a large system who has optimized it to work in a way that doesn't dramatically slow down the way the client works or even breaks it. So that is a pause, but we hope that in the next few months that we can pick that up again. Currently being developed right now are the ability to change your column widths by dragging it. I know it sounds like a small thing, but everybody that has had to customize a grid in Evergreen and had to open up the grid configuration menu and then select column width and then hit a bunch of arrows a bunch of times and then save it, it's going to appreciate the ability to just drag it to resize. So that is being developed right now. And then the other one that is also being developed is a split hours editor currently in, and I'm going to use this, I know it's jargon, in the org unit settings where you go in to set your library hours. You only have the option to have that one range. So 9 to 5, your library is open and then the rest of the time is closed. What this will do will give you the opportunity to say that you're open from 9 until 12 and then you're open from 1 until 5. So, and then some spot in there to, or whatever they are, that's just an example, to also provide notes on that and to decide if those notes are publicly available or if they are only visible for staff. The place that they would be publicly available in is in the OPAC, where the hours are available now, and then potentially in the app that might include some future development. And there will probably need to be some coordination with Ken Cox at some point to accommodate this new feature. Okay, I'm going to skip over the next one since we're talking about development real quick, and I'll do that next. We have been working as a community on the expanded data set or testing data set project, which is adding more stuff to the practice database that comes with Evergreen so that you can do more real life testing on it. And we are preparing to have a cutoff for stuff to be added to that. And then what ECDI is going to do is look at contracting with someone to write the correct code to inject that data into where it needs to be injected. I don't know. There are multiple places. So and then we're also going through many stages of collaboration, negotiation, research, and do it all again and write some things and then see where we're at and do it again for both an Overdrive or eMaterials OPAC integration, which would allow for searching of those third-party databases without the need to import MARC records. And then also an administrative interface for patron engagement services like Patron Point or Orange Boy or Communico, or those services that are asking for patron information from the database. And this would provide a secure way for them to get at it themselves without having to do a bunch of the custom stuff that we have to do right now. We are not the only Evergreen user that is seeing this. So both of these things are high priority for the Evergreen Community Development Initiative. I do want to go back now and say that we've had some change in leadership. Jeff Clapes, who was the chair of the committee forever, I think since it actually started, retired from his position in his library, and so went off, and that also gave us the opportunity to look at the continuity of leadership in ECDI, which is a very young organization of library organizations. So we had our first elections and have a new chair, and then also a chair-elect, similar to Evergreen Indiana, so it will provide for that training and continuity. And then the next thing in terms of governance and organizational structure have to do with putting together agreed upon bylaws, and then also a memorandum of understanding between those member organizations and the ECDI. So that's what we're working on, and other stuff, but that's the big stuff.
Make sure I'm in the correct window here. Okay. Fiscal report. I believe this is me. I'm going to click on a link and hope that it will show the correct thing to everyone. Question mark. Is the screen changing for all the folks playing along at home?
Yes.
Yep.
Is it still showing the, okay. So
It's loading
oh, it is loading for you? Okay, lovely.
slowly. Yes. Yes.
Wow, that is a thing that a person could see. Okay.
It's very little.
I can't, for the record, I cannot believe that hitting Control Plus is actually working. That is almost a thing that is readable now by a human. Oh, but I cannot actually. This is not actually clickable stones. Life is a comedy. All right. That's where, so this is, I'm actually going to have to move in front of the classroom here. Apologies if my face is in the way.
While Keith is moving, whoever is taking minutes, I apologize. The iPhone ST is Scott Tracy, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Very good. So where we're at with our budget, we have spent $280,000 of our $369,000 so far this year. So we currently have $88,000 unspent. A lot of that comes from the conferences that we were not, like the annual meeting that we were not able to host. We have spent some from our server refresh fund, where we purchased more servers than normal for this year. So even though it's $88,000 that is unspent, I think we reappropriated $17,000 previously unencumbered funds to pay for the server yet this year. Other than that, does anybody have any questions about the finances? It's unclear how easy that is to read. I can barely see this from standing right in front of the screen. I will try and enlarge it, although that would probably have the effect of making it cut off a little bit.
So I don't know, this might be a silly question, but here we go.
Sure.
When you appropriate money for next year, do you get to reappropriate that 88 or whatever it ends up being without any issue on top of any of the new money? Or is that money like not
So
available to appropriate?
Any unencumbered funds
Okay.
are essentially go in, it's spelled out that we split it 50-50 between an emergency fund and a equipment / server refresh fund.
I see.
Is where that any unencumbered funds will go to those things. And that will help cover things like this year where we needed to buy more servers than normal. And so even though we only budgeted, I think $50,000, we ended up spending, reflected on there, equipment and software. Even though we ended up budgeting $50,000, we actually spent looks like about $57,000, give or take.
Is our income only from membership?
That is correct.
Okay.
I mean, as far as Evergreen, and for clarification, Evergreen Indiana itself is supported by LSTA funds. The membership fee is just something that we instituted
In like 2015.
in 2015.
Mhm.
And we instituted that to have something in place in case that LSTA funding one day dried up. Without that LSTA funding, initially Evergreen could not have happened. So the membership funds are a way to kind of push Evergreen Indiana more towards self-sustaining and keeping the lights on. But as it is now, all of, I believe 100% of our budgeted income does come from those membership fees.
Okay. And so then when we get LSTA money, that just keeps us from spending quite as much.
The LSTA money.
It essentially pays for staff, and it pays. So one of the things that you learn here at the state library is that we're all getting paid out of different pots. And so LSTA, prior to the membership fund, Evergreen was funded by the Indiana State Library in terms of salary as well as equipment, and then also LSTA. So that has shifted. It hasn't, well, it kind of has shifted. Now with the membership fee, there is the money to do more things from that, whether we have to or not. We're just not as dependent on the state library's budget getting cut or that LSTA funding. So it still gets spent though.
Okay, thanks.
Good question. Thank you. Any other questions on fiscal matters here?
I do have a question, and we can probably talk if you can make that big again. I'm curious because that staff is me. In case anybody wondered, the staff there, it's me. And okay, well, now it's big enough that you
Too
need to
big?
scroll.
Okay.
Well, it's big enough, but you just need to scroll down. Okay, so it has the balance at a negative, and so I'm wondering why that is, and we may need to go through there because there may be something that is accounted differently because the other half of my salary comes from ECDI, which is in the same pot, but not in the same pot. So we may need to clarify on that.
I noticed when I put the numbers in the check register yesterday that it came out slightly negative, and I wonder if it's because of the IoT chart, because the IoT charges are also assessed in there.
Oh, they are. Okay.
Charges vary from month to month.
Mm-hmm.
So something may have changed there that has made that.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it then, because I think that there should still be a positive balance in that.
Okay. Unless you want to take a pay cut, Ruth.
No,
If you're volunteering.
I'm not. And in fact, if we're taking volunteers, it will be for something completely different than a pay cut.
So this spreadsheet here isn't all of our expenditures. It's only expenditures as related to non-LSTA money. Is that right?
No, it's all the expenditures.
So all of this. So how many staff do we have?
So here's the thing here. Not mine is the only salary that comes out of here. So that salary, that staff there is the only thing that comes out of this pot of money. For instance, Lynn is paid for by LSTA and state. So
okay.
I know that's weird. Go ahead, Keith.
Ruth's position did not exist as of what, 3 years ago?
As of, I guess I have been here that long. I was going to say 6 months ago, but I guess it was 2019.
Yeah, it's 2.5 years ago.
Yeah. So this position was created so that we could have someone handle the training and managing kind of as our liaison slash.
Oh no, I'm the coordinator of the ECDI, and I get paid from membership money from the ECDI, and then I get paid for membership money from Evergreen, Indiana.
Who controls how much our staff earn?
Say that again.
Who controls how much our staff get paid?
That's another complicated question because I also work for the state library despite getting paid through membership funds. So it goes through the state's personnel department, but then also both Evergreen, Indiana, as well as the ECDI.
I guess really I should have asked this question. This is my question. Do we have an impact on how much our staff get paid? This committee.
You could.
But we historically don't. Is that?
It is a very complex thing because it also has to be justified in terms of benefits and things to the Indiana state government's state personnel department.
Okay. I'll stop asking these questions and I'll talk.
No, I appreciate you asking that.
Great question.
As soon as you scale from local government finance to state government finance, it gets crazy.
Well, I'll talk to one of you later to get a better understanding on how we pay our staff.
I would like you to mark out 3 hours, and definitely we need to have food there.
Ruth explains this to me about every 3 months, and I still have to ask for clarification on exactly how it all works. But
it's fine. It's kind of one of those things that, yeah. Anyway, yes, as you say.
I too would agree that Ruth should be paid more money.
No, that's not really what I'm saying. I'm saying that everybody should be paid more
That's
money.
not what you're saying, but that's what I'm saying.
Thanks. I mean, I'll take it. Send checks. No, don't.
Y'all gotta remember, this is half a Ruth's salary,
Yes.
plus her benefits, plus a bunch of other stuff that is not, that you have to take account for. Benefits such as her insurance, her
Thank you. I like insurance.
retirement,
Also, I like retirement.
things like that, or that you have to take in consideration in the amount of money for that line, particularly for that line item.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to think that I think that we're paying people too much. I'm just trying to get a handle on who gets to make decisions about how much people are paying.
Of course, absolutely. And so it was originally, there was a proposal that was made by Anna Gobin to both the executive committee. Well, it was to the executive committee, but also with ECDI, because my job is twofold. It is coordinator for the ECDI and then training for Evergreen, Indiana and stuff. And so there was the proposal that she made that was something that the state personnel department would go along with, because it was creating an atypical position paid in an atypical manner, which is not unusual for the state government, but it is unusual. So
I think we have this meeting enough. I'm sorry. I will follow up later with more questions. My apologies to everyone.
They need to apologize for it. Let's see, this is, okay, so the next slide here, I think, is to the cataloging committee updates here, and I believe we are lucky enough to be joined by Monica Riley, the chair of the cataloging committee, if she's still around here.
I'm here.
Hey, Monica.
Hey.
We met 2 Thursdays ago, it feels like 5 minutes ago, at Hussey Nathan Memorial Public Library. I've got some stuff written down here, but you would all probably like to hear the much more direct and cohesive version from Monica, if you would be so kind.
I doubt it, because I looked back through the minutes and I didn't find much. So maybe between the two of us, we can put together a report. The cataloging committee, as Ruth and Keith have already talked about, several of the Cat ones have learned how to use the cover art uploader. I think Ruth said 30, some of us now have that ability. The training manual needs updates after the upgrade to 3.7, but we don't have those in place yet. Ruth is still working on the DVD parts project, and she has solicited help from some of the cataloging committee members. A few of us are going to meet in January so that we can help with that project.
And anytime that you place a hold on a DVD and you see that one of the choices is any unassigned items, that's what I will judgmentally and colloquially refer to as bad, in that it's very confusing for staff and impacts the ability to actually get stuff into patrons' hands. This parts project involves how many thousands of records and items would you say?
The ones that we're focusing on right now, we're down to about 75,000 records. But that's a subset for sure of that. And that we're focusing first on any records that have transiting circulation modifiers on them, because it's much more difficult to fix a misplaced hold on something that's gone from one library to another than it is to do if it's on things that just stay in your library. So that's our priority. But in total, there are about 600,000 item records that still need some level of attention. But that level of attention can also be handled in some cases very quickly by some sorts and deletes by status, things like that. It's a huge project.
And it is.
But I have some wonderful people who have volunteered who know exactly what can be done on the back end. And so, as Monica says, we'll be doing some deputizing after the first of the year. It's a pretty high level ability that they're going to be granted. So we're keeping that pool very small so as to not let the cats out, I guess.
I would also add that Keith and Ruth both said this is a huge project, and it is, but this project was started in 2020, probably spring or summer of 2020. And member libraries were supposed to update their holdings at that time, or at least start working on them.
Right.
And
a lot have been great about
did,
it. Yes.
But a lot of them haven't.
Right.
So the ones that haven't are, I think, some of the ones that Ruth and her deputies hopefully are going to take care of.
Yeah. We have the ability to do some kind of mass things that libraries can't do just locally. So so we can pick things off just a little bit faster and provide support for some of those libraries who honestly maybe don't have the time to go in and figure that out. So hopefully once we get through this part, then we can go back to the individual libraries and say, this isn't done, we need your help. Please go into your local holdings and add parts to these specific groups of things.
What else? I think that's, the MARC templates the committee is looking at those to get those updated for original cataloging. Hopefully have those updated before Porter County goes live in March. And whether you guys remember or not, I do not know. We do have a local thesaurus in the Evergreen, Indiana catalog. We created it a few years ago with just a very few terms. We are looking at adding 2 to 3 more terms to that, and we're going to vote on that in March. Keith, did you have anything else that I didn't cover?
No, I think you've pretty well eclipsed mine. The biggest thing for me was the parts project and the formation of Ruth's policy, who will come up with a cool like Wild West name for that.
Can't wait.
There may be badges. Related to the training manual for cataloging. So right now, the one that's available is the 3.4. I have added documentation in there on how to use the cover art uploader. Even though it's 3.7, but just because we don't have all of that documentation up there. I will also be adding documentation to multiple manuals for the use of carousels before the end of this year. I'm hoping before the end of this week, but we'll see how that goes. And then also I have started the process of where we will go in and update the training manuals so that at the next cataloging meeting and perhaps before then, I can send those things out for people to start updating screenshots and workflows and things that have changed. And then we'll also be looking at the other training manuals, circulation, local administration reports, which unfortunately haven't changed a whole lot, but so those are all actually in process. There's not just the knowledge that it needs to be done. Work has started to start getting those done.
I want to thank Ruth for that because the committee itself hasn't done much of that yet. And that Ruth's gotten that ball rolling. So I appreciate that.
No problem. It's my job, I think.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
All right. We can move on to e-content here. So the e-content committee met about 4 hours ago this morning at 10 a.m. I will pull out my notes from that. I believe we have Mary and Rebecca on here. So I will let you all speak if you have anything that you want to add. But the biggest thing we talked about is something that we'll talk about here with the executive committee here soon, which is the Indiana Digital Library, which is the new Evergreen, the new Overdrive Consortium that the EIDC will be joining, and we hope pretty much all Evergreen libraries will as well. Is there anything poignant, Mary or Rebecca, that would be okay to bring up now? If they're still there, I actually can't really see the chat.
I can't think of anything. We're excited about the new consortium. That's pretty much what we talked about this morning. So
we did talk about, as one of the biggest functions of the e-content committee was acting as the oversight body for the Evergreen Indiana, the E-Indiana Digital Consortium. And so since that, with the new quasi-statewide consortium, the Indiana Digital Library, the EIDC as it currently stands will no longer exist. So we discussed a little bit about what the e-content committee is going to look like. In particular, we've decided to move towards quarterly e-content committee meetings. Previously, e-content committee meetings did line up with every executive committee meeting. So that was 6 meetings a year. So the e-content committee is going to go down to 4 meetings a year. Our next meeting is still going to be February 8th. That'll be basically a week after the new Indiana Digital Library launches. So we'll be able to talk about that, what all we've experienced there. And it just now occurred to me that Krista is the chair of the e-content committee and also right here, and I could have asked for her input. I've been looking towards the right half of the room, not my left half of the room. So Krista, have I missed anything that you want to remark on here?
Don't think so. I don't know. We're going to talk about the IDL in a minute anyway, so we can keep any comments for that. I did want to bring up the one thing that Mary mentioned that none of us knew about, actually the hoopla. Right. What do you call that, Mary?
Hoopla binge pass and magazines.
Yes. Yeah. Just to make people aware of that. I had not heard about it, but it's a new service through Hoopla where patrons it will charge us once and they get a week's access to great courses, for example.
Great courses, magazines.
Yes.
Couple other things, yeah. So it's a really weird.
It's a weird little thing, yes. And there are going to be some magazines in Hoopla.
Yeah.
Now. About Canada. There's a Canadian ones.
I think someone said, was it Mary that said there were, I think she did a side-by-side comparison of what's available in Overdrive periodicals and what's available in the Hoopla binge pass, and there were only like 6 magazines in the Hoopla binge pass that weren't in Overdrive periodicals. Does that sound right, or is it the other way around?
yes, that's correct. It was 44 titles and only 6 of those were not in Libby.
Okay.
However, Hoopla does not have any back issues, whereas Libby does.
So yeah, weird business model there.
Can I ask how much one of those costs?
It's $2.99 for
Okay.
7-day access to the whole collection, but there's the great courses.
Yeah, I was gonna say, okay, that's not
Great
bad.
courses is one thing and the magazines are another. So $2.99, 7 days. It would cost Plainfield $2.99 for a patron to have access to the 44 magazines for the 7 days. And then they could check it out again after 7 days. Or the great courses package for 7 days, just 2 separate things, but $2.99 for 7 days.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird.
That is weird. I mean,
And it came
interesting.
out
I don't
of
know if it's
nowhere.
bad. It's just weird.
Yeah, it's not bad. It just really came out of nowhere. All of a sudden it was live and nobody really knew about it. So whatever.
All right.
Yeah.
People has done that in the past.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on then to the Patron Services Committee. So we, our last meeting with the Patron Services Committee was on September 21st at 10 a.m. And I think Julie Bigler is in here and perhaps some other representatives from the Patron Services Committee as well. So if you were in on that meeting and have stuff you want to remark on, or if I've forgotten anything, feel free. I did want to note that I'm going to skip the first thing here and then come back to it. We've already talked about the transiting parts project. We are, as part of the Evergreen 3.7 upgrade, the patron facing OPAC has a new look and feel that we can turn on. We have, or rather, Ruth has claimed attribution rights for calling it the BooPack, so named because it is an OPAC that is written in the Bootstrap web framework. We chose not to launch that redesigned OPAC with the 3.7 upgrade to avoid rocking the boat too much. That is something that we are targeting for a March release.
Okay, it'll be out. Let me rephrase that. It'll be out in March for testing.
Okay, for March, okay, for testing, okay.
And it will be released when I upgrade. I've got to do some upgrades that work on Memorial Day weekend. When I sit there and do that upgrade in Memorial Day weekend, I will be releasing the BooPack to the public if it is stable and is working like we want it to at that time.
Okay.
If not, I will wait until Labor Day and release the BooPack at that point.
Cool. And so along with that, something that's on our radar along that redesign is the official Evergreen self-checkout website. That's on our radar as well. That's currently written using kind of an old template. And that's something that we would like to add some feature enhancements and some usability enhancements to. Is there anything that you wanted to remark on that, Lynn?
No.
No. Cool.
I just need time to do it.
Yep. We need time and also potentially a clone. All my attempts to clone Lynn so far have failed. It is an ongoing process. Julie, if you have anything you'd like to add, feel free. My memory is flawed, and it's been like 3 months.
I put a link into chat if you want to take a look at the advanced search for an example of the BooPack interface, how that differs from the current, what is called TPAC. What we use as the OPAC right now is a TPAC. And then this is because it uses template toolkit. This is BooPack because it uses the Bootstrap toolkit. So it has some different functionality in here. But then, Keith, if you want to click on my account and then go ahead and let me pop back over here real quick. And then just put in admin and then demo 1, 2, 3. The nice thing about this is actually the account summary. And so it's much more user-friendly than the current My Account feature. There are some other things. And this again, this is the example. It doesn't have all of our customizations, all of our production things that you would see in Evergreen, Indiana. But if you want to click, I don't know, on items checked out real quick on down in that left-hand nav bar. Yeah. And then just one of those. It's kind of the same functionality. It just looks a little bit different and a little bit more user-friendly. It's also more responsive. This interface is more responsive for mobile devices. So, or smaller screens or bigger
Yeah, I'm
screens.
not going to try and recreate that right now. Let's
No. Okay, but I just wanted you guys to get a glance at what that means when we say BooPack. It's some subtle but meaningful differences from what we have right now.
So we can go back to the old slideshow here. Right. Cool. All right. So the Strategic Planning Committee, we met yesterday at 1 p.m. We sent out a strategic planning survey 2 or 3 months ago, but so far has gotten 45 responses. So I'm going to continue poking to get folks to fill that out. Lynn has actually updated the staff client to now have a link that makes it very easy for staff members to click on to fill out that survey. We figure that after the upgrade now, after some of the dust has settled, if anybody has any strong opinions that they formulated in the past 2 weeks, feel free to give us both barrels. If you're primed and ready, we're eager to receive the input and use that to help with the formation of focus groups.
I'm older, 1 barrel is enough.
So we did decide that we'll cut off responses on January 15th. That's to allow enough time for folks to get their feedback to us, and then we will begin moving with creating focus groups. All right. Boy, that's a lot of talking. Is it cool to move to unfinished business here? Yeah. Okay. So basically, the only thing that I have for unfinished business is as we move towards a statewide consortium here. I keep wanting to call it a statewide consortium because that's what it was initially billed as, although it will not by default include everyone in the state unless they choose. Almost everyone in the state is welcome to join, with the exception of a few of the very, very, very large systems. We have held several meetings now to discuss the consortium, both meetings with Overdrive and representatives from the EIDC and the IDDC. Last Friday, I believe, was that the first meeting that directors from outside those
That's correct.
were had. So it's been a little bit of a
rush to catch up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
A rush to catch up.
Yeah. So I know that a lot of libraries, I think, were just exposed to that information last Friday, which was, I think, the 10th, and then being then told that, oh, by the way, you now have a month to get the information, try and get this to us by the end of the year, has completely understandably induced a lot of confusion / furious panic. Yeah, I won't call it panic, but we'll call it panic. So the go live date for that consortium has been set in February 1st. I hate to write that the EIDC, as we know it, will cease to exist. There's not really a nicer way to put it, but it will transcend into something better. We will all go to merge with the collective. It
doesn't sound terrifying at all.
Yeah,
you too shall be assimilated.
we are just that much closer to joining the singularity and all becoming one entity
indeed.
of mind, body, and spirit. So one of the things that we have that Stephanie Murphy has kind of been looking for are more people to serve on the content management team. We don't have, we know what sort of tasks the content management team will be performing. That will be, purchasing items to fulfill high holds requests, mainly. We don't yet have an idea of what that time commitment will look like. We do have at least 2 members from the e-content committee have reached out to Stephanie to be a part of that. So we are thankful for that, but we would definitely be glad to have more consortium members who could serve on that content management team. So I know folks here probably a little bit on the busy side, but if anybody has any recommendations for folks who they think would be good, feel free to nudge them, or if you'd like me to nudge them, I'd be happy to. But Stephanie Murphy has made herself very available to reach out to regarding the consortium. She's been super great at answering questions. She's actually got an FAQ that I don't have. I dare not pull it up here. It is linked in the draft. This is an FAQ that we have edit access to if we need to add anything. But this is something that we plan to send out to not just the Evergreen Consortium, but also to any libraries that are interested in joining. She took a lot of those questions that were there on Friday's meeting and kind of condensed them down. Question has come in from Julie Bigler. Will the switch to the new Indiana Digital Library Consortium be a seamless transition? Will things look different for patrons? My understanding, in short, yes to the first question, no to this. Yes to both questions, really. The only bump that we are anticipating is that after the February 1st go live, patrons will have to, we are told, log into their devices again or log into their accounts again. So if they were on like an iPad or a tablet or phone, that automatically remembered their login credentials and perhaps has been remembering their login credentials for the past 9 years. They will have to log in again, and so they may have to do a password reset if they've forgotten their password. But otherwise, we're not anticipating, or we have been told that there's no other barrier to entry as far as patrons are concerned. Things will look different in that the branding will be different. Since it's currently the Overdrive and Libby sites are decorated with EIDC banners, and the EIDC won't be a thing, so we need new graphics and banners. And I think that Porter County has been tasking some of their marketing team to design some logos to make it look prettier, but it initially may just be kind of stock banners with white letters on colored background. But yeah, it should be in terms of functionality, we are not anticipating any difficulty here. Actually, would it be helpful to pull the FAQ up here? I think everyone has access to it through the agenda. I could pull it up here if it would be helpful. But really, this is just kind of the e-content committee did officially vote. Oh boy, now I have to remember what the vote in the wording was. And
I forgot the messenger gives exactly. It was something along the lines of we voted that to support the Indiana Digital Library to encourage all EIPC members to join. So,
or rather encourage all Evergreen libraries to join, because the EIDC joining is kind of is it more or less a foregone conclusion, I think?
Well,
the way the
each
process
individual
happens.
library still
Yeah.
has to agree.
That's true. The libraries could choose to not join if they really
This
wanted.
is true, and then they could go out, strike off on their own.
Right.
If they so chose. Although my understanding is all of the shared content of the EIDC will merge into Indiana Digital Library, that's IDL.
Yeah.
And any advantage titles will go with that library. So if that library chooses to join the IDL, then their advantage titles go with them. If they choose to strike that on their own, they keep their advantage titles. All the shared content. Yes, IDL.
Is that correct so far, Ruth? Is Ruth there muted?
The e-content committee also expressed, I believe you're saying this, a need to have some kind of oversight committee over the Indiana Digital Library, because as we said, things in overdrive change. And if there's decisions to be made, there needs to be some kind of governing body to make those decisions in the future. Cost change or magazine, something changes, we need some kind of governing body to step in and make those decisions.
I can't really hear what's going on in the room, so.
Oh, sorry. So for how am I gonna summarize that here? I think the biggest thing, titles that are currently consortially held in the EIDC will translate into the new Indiana Digital Library Consortium.
That's
I
correct.
believe. Correct.
Mhm.
And then any Advantage Plus titles and any Advantage Plus funds will still be held by the library.
Mhm.
That is
That's correct.
proven. With the understanding that those Advantage Plus titles will be shared with the consortium immediately.
Sure.
As part of the memorandum of understanding that Stephanie Murphy is drafting. One of the things that Krista was mentioning was the e-content committee did express a strong need for
The oversight component.
an oversight committee.
Yeah,
we are all-
and the EIDC is, or e-content's not the only one that's brought that up. That is a stated imperative for others as well.
Yeah, excellent. So there's a question from Monica. As of February 1st, will the Evergreen Indiana catalog be receiving new records or titles that are coming in from other consortia?
That's a good question. I don't know that we have complete clarification on that yet.
So
Well, once the actual consortial information is transferred over, we will probably do a refresh of all the overdrive items anyway,
Mhm.
because we are going to have to update the URLs for them all so that they will link out correctly. So we were probably getting a fresh dump from overdrive of all the overdrive records so that the consortium owns,
Mhm.
so that they can be actually inputted incorrectly.
There aren't that very many other consortia so the IDDC and EIDC are the two that
Big one.
are, the big ones are what made up the bulk of our Evergreen records to begin with. And I believe IDM, I'm not sure that there is an Evergreen library that is part of that consortium anyway. But then NIDL is, and so, but of course, if Garrett is coming, then that may be, and I think, Nick, you could speak to that. Is there another Evergreen library that is part of that
Yes.
consortium?
There's at least
is it
two
Eckerd?
others. There are at least
Okay.
two.
Is Eckerd part of that one?
Yes,
Okay,
and so is Waterloo,
okay,
I think. Or don't quote me on that one. I might be wrong about Waterloo.
Hold on, let me
Anyway,
tell you.
I can speak for Garrett. I'm really interested in switching. I'm not here as a representative of NIDL,
Sure.
so I don't want to speak to what they're thinking or planning. But we do have a meeting tomorrow to talk about our
All that to say that there, it may be such that if there are just kind of some outliers, that they may be responsible for doing their own overdrive records as opposed to it being handled centrally, because the vast majority of them are going to be from IDL libraries, so far as we can tell at this point.
Gotcha. Julia Aker comments, we will only be purchasing Advantage Plus titles from now on. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, because the funds that are going to the consortium, the collection management team will be purchased for the consortium. So individual libraries, I believe, will only be purchasing Advantage Plus titles. Yes.
Well, and even if you have Advantage money right now before that starts and you're thinking about expending the money, for those of you who are actively doing collection development with your overdrive content credit, I personally would recommend that you do that as Advantage Plus titles. But those who do not expend the money they're not going to keep that. I guess there's two different things. So any that is not expended is going into that consortial pot in terms of non-Advantage Plus money. So your initial content credit. So.
Okay, let me make sure I understand this. So like our contract just renewed in October.
Mhm.
So you're saying if I have content credit that I have not spent in the last 6 weeks, that it's all of that's going into the consortial funds, all my $4,000?
Yes.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
But do you have an Advantage Plus account right now?
I do.
You may be able to have that converted into Advantage Plus money. We may need to look into that. That may be something, Keith, to also talk to Mike or our representative about that.
And I
Or
believe EIDC libraries, our contracts renew in October.
Yeah.
This is the first I've heard of this one. So of me giving up $4,000 in content credit.
does anybody have an idea when the recording? I think it might be available now, Nancy, but I'm not 100% sure about that.
Are you
Yeah.
Webinar?
from Friday?
Yeah, it's available.
Yeah, I think it got pushed out to the all directors listserv.
Yeah, it got sent to the all directors distribution list and a few other folks. Hold on and let me see if I can find it. That's too far back.
Do you know if that's been uploaded to YouTube?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
uploaded.
Okay, let me see if I can find it real quick.
If you can find it, Ruth, it went out. I think Stephanie Asbury sent it out yesterday.
Yeah. Take a quick little look.
Can you find it, Ruth?
I have not found it yet. I'm looking, but if you have found it, go for it.
So, okay.
Here's the recording.
Yeah, I don't see it on this.
Oh, okay, I sent it Saturday. That's what it was. That's why I can't find it. It was Saturday. Let me go back.
I just saw it in my email yesterday. Thank you.
It was from.
It was from Stephanie. It's also in the chat right now, if you've got it up there.
Okay, did you get it in there? All right, thanks.
Oh, it's not listed. That's why I couldn't find it.
Oh, it's not listed. Okay.
Yeah, it's not, it was never, I don't know why she didn't publish it. That's how nobody can initially just go find it.
Okay. So I think that's all we have to report on, really. I don't know. What do you all think, or do you have any thoughts, fears, concerns?
I'm really excited about it.
I'm excited for what it can be and hopefully will be. Yeah.
There just seems to be a lot of unanswered questions. I mean, I'm ready to go, but it's just if it come February 1, are patrons going to be able to find our electronic materials? Is our Evergreen catalog going to be up to snuff? Is very grumpy.
Patrons grumpy.
Yeah. Is all my content credit disappearing?
Yeah, that's so I'm compiling a list of things that I want to email to Stephanie to see about getting included in the FAQ we push out. So one of them is just about the governance for the Indiana Digital Library. But I'm definitely going to ask, actually I'm going to ask Overdrive about whether we can convert any funds in the non-Advantage Plus accounts to Advantage Plus accounts. Because I anticipate there will probably be a lot of libraries who, who got content credit in November, and they then turn around and say you got until
next week to spend it.
Yeah, until February 1st, basically. Yeah, that's a very short turnaround time. So if it can't be done, then at the very least we want to get the word out to libraries so that they can buy as much stuff as they can now. But I would hope that there's a mechanism by which you can put stuff from the non-Advantage Plus accounts into an Advantage Plus account.
I'm not sure if you mentioned this yet, and I apologize if I just zoned out and missed it, but will there be a rebranding for the EIBC, and will we have those logos and things well in advance? Because I'm just thinking for our patrons, it would be nice if I could make some sort of graphic that says, don't panic. When you might see this now instead of this, and if they have some sort of visual reminder, I know for our patrons, that tends to solve a lot of the massive grumpiness. It's when it changes and no one has said anything to them that they tend to get real huffy. So if that's possible, I would be more than happy to create some sort of graphic and share, and then people can put their own branding on it or whatever, just to help patrons be aware. Or this might be something that might need to be pushed to the Patron Services Committee. I don't know. But I think that would be massively helpful.
Did you all hear that? Everybody at home heard that? Okay, cool. So I know that we don't currently have any logos for branding. This is something that I believe Porter County
They are working on it. Yes.
Working on getting some logos created. In a meeting we had a couple weeks ago, they asked the state library whether anybody on staff could create those logos, and you don't really want to see my Photoshop skills. And we don't really have someone on staff who's great with graphic design. So I would say, Jennifer, if you want to get some logos in the running and you want to open up.
Oh, I didn't mean logo so much. I just meant like once we had the logo like putting something together, but I'm happy to help too. I can't say I'm any great graphic designer either, but I
Let the
can only
record
cobble
show
something
that
together.
Jennifer has agreed to create more.
Yeah, just tell me all your logo needs, send them my way. Ha, ha, ha.
Oh, Jennifer's the one taking minutes. We can't get that in the record.
No, that's what's struck, sorry.
But yeah, if anybody wants, so certainly we've got the FAQ that we've, I guess the FAQ that we're pushing out is more geared towards library directors and purchasers and folks who are on the front lines of dealing with the transition. Yeah, we don't currently have anything patron facing, so that would be definitely something that we could put in front of the Patron Services Committee if anyone wanted to come up with that, so that our patrons will be prepared for when that happens.
I know having staff prepared is always, of course, number one, but I just feel like if we let our patrons know a little bit in advance, it will keep us all a lot happier.
And one more thing with growing patrons, I mean, my patrons know to the millimeter where they stand in that whole list. For that hot title. Will their holds still be there, and how will this will affect holds lists? If my patron is number 37 and it's telling it's going to be 14 weeks for them to get that item, and now I guess my question is, how are these, because these patron lists are going to be merged and holds, and or their holds even still carry over? Because again, they know. They know. Yes. Yeah.
We anticipate that those holds are gonna, so they will likely, they will keep their stuff, their holds, but their hold time may also drop. They won't increase right away, if at all. There would be kind of like maybe a bounce, but then we'll also have the content management team that's going to go in there to mitigate that, to see what those are and be responsive to that. So we anticipate that also with Advantage Plus accounts being shared from the get-go, that is going to also drop those hold times as well. So of course, that's a best guess. We don't really know until we turn that car on and start driving it.
Like I said, that's just a question, how will these various hold lists be combined? I said my patron goes from being number 37 to being number 52. What do I tell them? Because they will notice.
We are going to do our level-headed best for them to notice only good things.
I also just know that sometimes, like I have a patron who they moved out of our service area, moved into our neighbors, Mooresville's. They're still EIDC, but somehow or another, now that they have a Mooresville card, their holds have just, they cannot download their holds even though they're present. And we end up having to like read. And again, the same type of thing. He was like waiting and waiting. He finally got down to like number 6 on that holds list and could not download the title because, and it's just weirdness with Overdrive. And I just want
Overdrive
some kind of
works.
reassurance that Overdrive will be on top of this and making it a smooth transition. That the most that they have to do is relog into that account, and that it's not going to be like what holds, or yeah, you got holds, but no, this account isn't authorized to download it, because that's just been an issue I've noticed anytime we mess with patron accounts.
They will be as on top of it as we can force them to be on top of it, which is a question. I mean, for sure.
So that does bring up a question of clean card numbers, which is something that I have only recently discovered, having had a lot of discourse with our account representatives, especially for like when Evergreen does maintenance windows. I know that currently some EIDC libraries, I think it's a very small number of EIDC libraries use clean card numbers. A very small handful of EIDC libraries do not use clean card numbers. Most do. But that I think is what is causing the issue where a patron moves from a service district, because if you're using clean card numbers, what Overdrive is authenticating against is the patron's database ID in Evergreen. So long as you're not creating an entirely new account for that patron, they should have access to all of their holds materials. But if you're coming from a system that didn't use clean card numbers, then Overdrive is trying to look that patron up by their card number, but then moving to the EIDC, they're trying to look it up by database ID. So my suspicion is that they're probably not going to change whether or not you're using clean card numbers or not, but I would like clarification on that. Because certainly if we're having a statewide consortium now, not just moving between Evergreen districts, moving between any district that's part of this library, could potentially impact whether or not you get access to your holds if you get a new library account. Courtney asked, what do clean card numbers mean? That's a good question, because Evergreen or Overdrive does not have any documentation of it on their website. But essentially, it means that when you create an account in Overdrive, Overdrive will look up, it won't pull up your account by your library card number. Instead, it will pull your account up, it will take the library card number that you give it, and then it will ask Evergreen's database to provide the patron database ID, and that is how it returns the patron. The biggest advantage of this is, say if a patron gets a new library card, then the patron is going to be able to, with clean card numbers, the patron will be able to have access to all of their holds and checked out materials with that new library card, because it's essentially using the library card to pull up their Evergreen account. Does that make sense in 1,000 words or less?
Sort of.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it, but I don't know that this is, yeah.
It is 100% opaque. I've tried to pull more information about clean card numbers out of Overdrive. It's not clear to me how you change that, or whether you opt into that at the time you set up, or is it can be changed afterwards. So that's something that I would want some clarification on, because people will expect that if you move from one library to another now, if there's a statewide consortium, that you will be able to have access to those materials. And like Krista said, you don't want to have the issue where you're number 1 on a book that you've been waiting 42 weeks for, and then get a new library card, now you're at the end of the list.
My question is, why are they just not automatically converting this to clean cards? I mean,
I don't know, man.
There's like zero reason to not do that. Sorry.
Yeah,
I feel like my voice is raising here because I have opinions about it, but.
Well, I just don't know if it's something that anybody's talked about yet, or something that's asked about, because it's such a niche, like finicky thing. The biggest strike.
I'm not talking about like customers asking about it. Of course, I mean, why would they even think to? But for Overdrive to know that that's an issue, and to be dealing with Consortium and not say, hey, we have this thing that's going to make this much less opaque and much more seamless for patrons. Let's just do it.
I mean, that's the world that I want to live in. The biggest strike against clean card numbers is that, like, when Evergreen is down for maintenance, if you're using clean card numbers, because Overdrive cannot look up the patron account with a library card number, patrons will not be able to access Evergreen.
Yeah, but you can do a data dump and provide that. They can compare against that.
Well, so that's not an option that Overdrive has ever given us when I've tried to bring that up.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
It's part of something, it's a new feature that they have that was not when we created our Evergreen membership. Like, we wouldn't necessarily, ours would not necessarily work that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an option that if we knew how to turn it on or where it was, we could.
So in the EI, is Greenwood EIDC or are you? So I believe almost every single EIDC library uses clean card numbers. So I think that it's definitely not a new thing. I think it's probably been around maybe since the EIDC was formed, question mark. I'm not certain. The history on it is very muddy to me. And similarly, as far as whether that option exists or where it exists to turn off, similarly, I have absolutely no idea where that is.
Well, I mean, it makes sense to go by database ID because that allows you to replace library cards.
Sure.
But to then rely on connectivity constantly for that is also dopey.
Yep.
So,
All right, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was such a can of worms. Is there any other concerns or questions about the digital library that anyone wants to ask? Or?
Krista, those are great questions, though. We will follow up on those.
All right, well, is there anything else we need to beat this dead horse with on the digital library? Or are we on to new business?
Which there is no new.
That's good. That's fortunate. All right, so it looks like announcements then. Next meeting, February 8th.
Yeah.
1 week after we go live with Indiana Digital Library.
And everything will be fine.
And everything will be fine.
That'd be
We're all
great.
So happy.
We don't have to beat the dead horse. We will feed the live horse with compliments and praise about how wonderful everything.
Such a good horse.
Great.
All right.
Okay, we're getting a little punchy here.
Yeah.
I think it's about time we had maybe a motion to adjourn. If there's no further business. So moved. Second?
I'll second it. Can I do that? as a
Yeah.
secretary?
Yeah.
All right. Right now,
I'm the only one who can.
Okay.
Second, so. All right, non-debatable motion, meeting's adjourned.